Hello, and welcome back to the East Anglian Traditional Music Trust's Big Sky Traditions. We're back again for another episode in our Vaughan Williams Folk series that is accompanying the EATMT's larger project celebrating Vaughan Williams folk song collecting in East Anglia. In this episode, we're focusing on one part of the project that is a particular highlight to me, the young musicians. As part of the larger Vaughan Williams Folk project, the EATMT have got a bunch of amazingly talented young musicians and are giving them the resources and space to take songs collected by Vaughan Williams and bring them back to life again, all in time for Folkies 2023 and the EATMT's Traditional Music Day. All of this is being led by the brilliant folk musicians Finn Collinson and Emma Beach, who I fortunately managed to get to sit down with recently and speak about the project and their involvement in it.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Great, thank you.
So, how's your Friday, guys? How's it all going?
All good, thank you. Yes, catching up on various bits of work today, teaching other stuff.
Fantastic. And Emma,
Nice.
whereabouts in the world are you right now?
I'm back in Germany. So my morning has been spent also doing some admin, but mainly trying to learn German.
Oh wow! Is that like German folk songs as well at all?
So I actually haven't got into many German folk songs yet. However, I have recently met someone from Switzerland who's really keen to do some folk music. So hopefully
Fantastic.
that will kind of be heading in the right direction.
Oh, that's fantastic. Brilliant. Well, it's fantastic to be able to talk to you guys and record our conversation, and like to have you on the East Anglian Traditional Music Trust Big Sky Traditions podcast. Obviously, maybe not everyone's going to know exactly who you are and your involvement in the project, so maybe we could have like a little brief introduction first of all, just maybe talking a little bit about like both your backgrounds in music and how you came into folk music, because I find that's always quite an interesting question to ask folk musicians because it's always got a slightly strange answer. But maybe like Finn, if you could start off and just and sort of talk about your background in music.
Yeah, sure. So folk music for me is something that I inherited from my parents. I was brought up surrounded by all sorts of amazing folk music that was just kind of playing in the house, and to both my mum and her dad, my grandfather, were great. Well, my mum still is a great musician, and it was kind of natural to start learning music at some point down the line, and started recorder lessons. And it wasn't very long before those paths started crossing, and the music that I was listening to and surrounded by at home kind of became the music that I wanted to play myself. And kind of parallel to all of that, I did do a full classical training as well. So
Oh, really?
spending lots of time with recorders, looking at early music and Baroque and medieval Renaissance stuff, which is another great love of mine, and that's something that I really enjoy, sort of blending with the folk stuff as well. But yes, so I studied music in London, which is where I crossed paths with Emma for the first time, and kind of again parallel to all of that, started making albums and releasing music under my own name, and that's sort of how I ended up getting to know the wonderful folks at the EATMT and at Folk East as well.
Oh, fantastic. And Emma, for you, was your background similar? Were you kind of classical as well, or is it a different story?
Oh yeah, mine's similar and maybe even more swung in the other direction, I think, because I hadn't really done any folk music until I'm losing count of the years, but maybe around 4 years ago now. But I guess my upbringing was completely classical then. So I actually started on the violin, but I was awful and I hated to practice. I hated to sight read. So we decided that wasn't the way. I guess all you folky people would call it a fiddle. But then I swapped to the oboe when I was around 10, and I could play lots of the notes, so I thought that would be the one for me. And then I stuck with classical for years, and yeah, I did lots of stuff at school, and then I also studied in London at the Guildhall School of Music, which was super fun. I met lots of really cool people. And that was where I kind of got, and Finn. Yeah, got to distinguish these things. But no, yeah. So that was again, yeah, that was where I met Finn, and it was actually with Finn that I kind of started doing folk music, and on the side of that, at the same time, I guess I got into kind of improvisation and some of the maybe more, I guess, collaborative things that sometimes in the classical world say like a bit kind of not so explored. Yeah, and then what have I forgotten? Oh yeah, how I got in the project. So I was doing some youth work with Finn at Folk East, and Finn had been asked to do this project, and we kind of thought that would work well working together on this. So yeah, that was how I came in touch with the. I can't say the name. ETMT.
So close yet so far. The EATMT.
That one.
There you go. Fantastic. And so, I mean, you're talking about Folk East. This is I've kind of witnessed this actually, like the youth moot, which was last year at Folk East. I mean, that was really fantastic being able to see, like, just in such a short amount of time, how an idea can be kind of creatively twisted and turned and it's so malleable. I'd love to hear a bit more about what your process is for teaching, because obviously you've been brought into this project and you're working as the leaders on this project, and I'd love to hear more about what your process is for taking this project on and how it's going to work.
I suppose I think for me, like in this project, like when we were asked to do it, Finn and I had lots of conversations about kind of what our role would be, kind of what was most important, and I guess what the kind of main output is, because often projects can get a bit wound up in the here's, there's, and everywhere's, and the kind of actual goal is lost. So I think we kind of decided on the fact that for us, like our, I guess, main role is to kind of help and guide the musicians that we've chosen through the project and help them to create something really cool at the end, because they're all super creative musicians. They've come from varying different backgrounds in their own fields. They probably know much more about what they do than we do. So I guess our main role is to not so much teach them, but just kind of help them do the things that they want to do and get the kind of best outcome in the performances at the end for them.
Fantastic.
It's kind of a facilitating role, I suppose, rather than, as Emma says, rather than teaching. It is just about enabling those collaborations and that creative process to happen in a really kind of organic way, I suppose, for those musicians.
Absolutely. And actually, I witnessed that, and when we had the recent in-person meetup, it was just amazing seeing that. But I'm getting ahead of myself because, I wanted to ask you before, you guys big fans of Vaughan Williams? What did you know about Vaughan Williams before you went into this project? A lot or not so much?
So for me, it's Vaughan Williams' music is something that I've known about for a while, but not in great detail. I've sort of very much been aware of him as a folk song collector and from time to time used songs that he collected, but the chance just kind of really put all of his work under the microscope and look at it closely is something that I've not really done prior to being involved in this. So it's an exploration and a learning process for me, definitely. And I work with traditional music quite a lot, but delving into those kind of specific archives and looking at things that just one person has done and their outlook on this music, it's always hugely exciting for me. And it's a great process.
Fantastic. And Emma, how about you? Did you know a lot about Vaughan Williams before you started working within this project?
So I'd again, maybe the opposite from Finn. I'd come across loads of his classical works, and I'd come across, he's written lots of, well, not lots of stuff, but he's written some stuff for oboe. There's a lovely solo piece for oboe and piano, and then an orchestral work called Sea Symphony. And that was all I knew about Vaughan Williams, alongside a nice little line that I kept being told by my music teachers, that Vaughan Williams likes to use inspiration from folk music, which I never really looked much into, but now it's really nice to kind of know what that actually means, and have the chance, I think, like Finn said, to have access to all of this fantastic material, and kind of really look into that, see what you could do with it, see the kind of music that he was listening to and hearing when he was writing all of his other works. So that's been a really, really nice opportunity for me, kind of to work alongside the project, just exploring this material.
Yeah, absolutely, and I guess in a way as well, because you both are professional folk musicians, alongside all this plethora of amazing other stuff you're doing. It must be really fantastic to go back and look at the roots of kind of modern day folk song collecting, I guess, and sort of be able to acknowledge that and be a part of it. Because also part of this project is taking these works and actually changing them for a future audience and keeping them sort of alive. Which is sort of what you dipped into in the in-person session. So I'd love to know, first of all, obviously this was your first time meeting the young musicians in person. What was your first reaction? How did you find it?
It was great. I think we knew that they were a great bunch, because we'd obviously had the whole application process, and then we'd had various fun meetings online. But I think Finn had met some of them before, very briefly, but this was kind of my first in-person meeting, and it was just so lovely, because from the off, everybody got on, everyone was sharing their ideas, everyone had different ideas as well, because I think those of us that have done lots of music workshops, you get very used to the kind of things that crop up every time, and it was kind of really refreshing for me that stuff didn't necessarily come up, and it was lots of other stuff instead. New ideas, new challenging ideas in places that kind of made other people go, okay, where are we going to go from here? Which was a really nice space to be in.
Fantastic.
I think for me as well, it's like when you put together a group of people like this, and that's kind of what we had to do. The nature of an application kind of selection process like that is choosing the people that get this opportunity. And when you do that, you're not just thinking necessarily about who's the best musicians or who's the right musicians for the project. It's about who's going to kind of really work together and create a great group and create a band that are going to make a great performance at the end of the project, and to kind of see that come to life, and that kind of relief, I suppose, of being like, oh great, they get on, they work together well, and they're going to make a great performance. That was wonderful to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it struck me. I was there on the day, and it really struck me how well, as a group, they were creatively working together. I managed to go into a few of their breakout groups when they were kind of working together creatively to work on some pieces, and it was just fantastic seeing the communication and just the talent as well. It's just really fantastic.
In early February, the young musicians met for the first time in person for a one-day training session and creative discussion on songs and tunes collected by Vaughan Williams, with a masterclass on contemporary interpretations of his tunes led by Kate Griffin, a fabulous musician and member of Mishra Music. I was lucky enough to join them, and I spent some time getting to know the participants and what exactly it is that drew them to the project.
Hey, my name's Peter. I play guitar and sing. Well, I sort of got into guitar and music in general in the last year, because I'm pretty sure my Xbox controller got taken off of me, so I had to find something else to do.
Right.
Just so happened that there was a guitar in the house, so I picked it up from there. Then got into Scottish folk.
Really?
From my dad's side.
Have you kind of got plans for the project? Have you got any songs in mind that particularly came out to you? You're like, I want to maybe work on making that song my own.
Well, I was thinking of maybe getting a couple songs and bringing them together into one.
Like a little medley sort of thing.
Yeah.
Any songs in particular?
Not yet, but I'm going to have a look through.
So I'm Anna. I play the violin, which is my first instrument, and I also sing, and I play a little bit of guitar and mandolin. I started violin when I was about 5. It was offered at the school I was at the time, but I did I learned by ear, so I did like a specific method of learning, and then kind of moved on from that when I was maybe 14, 15, and sort of started to pursue other kinds of music.
I'm Sarah. I mostly play guitar and sing. I do a bit of songwriting and stuff as well. I previously would have described myself as someone who also plays flute and piano, but the guitar is my thing I still play regularly and keep in contact kind of with. So yeah.
How did you get into playing guitar and songwriting in the first place?
So I think part of it was the portability for me, and the fact that I love singing and sharing music with people, sharing songs and stories with people. I think that's what draws me to folk music as well, is that kind of ability to tell people's stories and stuff. And having the guitar, kind of, you're not quite so vulnerable as singing completely by yourself. And obviously, it's much easier to carry around than a piano is. So yeah, that was.
Wow, that's good. So for both of you, so have you always had backgrounds in folk? Why folk music? I'm trying to understand, because obviously as young people, it's
interesting. Yeah, definitely. I don't know about you, but my parents have been involved in folk music for a long time, and my dad used to be involved in running a folk club before I was born. So it's kind of been on the peripheral of my sort of existence my whole life. So I think for that reason, perhaps it's always felt quite familiar to me and quite comfortable. And I think it varies a lot, but it can be a very warm and supportive space for when you're just getting started in singing and stuff. It's playing in folk clubs, especially when you're little. Generally speaking, people are very excited to see someone that's under 50 singing a song,
For folk music, why folk music?
I mean, neither of my parents are musicians, so I think I sort of came round to folk partly. I mean, it was a family interest, so we used to listen to kind of folk albums. My mum had friends in her 20s who were from Ireland and from other places, and they kind of introduced her to different artists, and then that kind of joined with my dad when they met. So I listened to quite a lot of folk when I was young. And then added on to that, I had in the kind of the community for the music I did, there was a teacher who wasn't my own teacher, but was another one on the outside who was quite interested in folk, and she kind of got us started on doing a little bit of improv and a bit of, we used to do these big group lessons and group sessions, and we'd sort of do some of that then.
My name is Layla. I'm a classically trained flautist, and I'm currently studying my master's degree in London at the Royal College of Music, but I'm from Norwich, and I've grown up with folk music in my family, so it's something I'm interested in, which is why I'm doing this project.
What was your first introduction to folk music?
It's been in my family for as long as I can remember. My parents were taking me to folk festivals as a kid. My dad's a Morris dancer, my mum leads plays and sessions. I went through a phase of being a kid and finding it embarrassing, and not wanting to have much to do with it, having a dad as a Morris dancer, but now I found a love for it again, and it's my favourite kind of music.
And do you think your classical training kind of plays into the way it influences your style of playing folk music?
Yeah, 100%. Not necessarily in a good way though, I'd say.
How come?
The classical training has taught me to read off scores and be extremely exact and play in a certain style, and folk music can quite often be the opposite of that, and doing things by ear and not being afraid to drift away from the music and not use the score. So it can be difficult at times.
Any songs or things that are kind of particularly coming out at you right now, you're thinking, I want to develop that as we go forward in the project?
Well, actually, the session we just did, working on taking like the bare bones of the transcriptions and making it your own, I found that really interesting, and that's something I really wanted to develop through this project. I guess again, it's like, how do I take my classical mind away from the music, and how do I make it less classical? And the things I'm learning through this project are really helping with that, and encouraging me to do that.
So I'm Ollie. I play the whistle. Played it since I was 17 after sort of getting into folk, after listening to the folk show on Radio 2 kind of second hand because my mum would have it on in the other room. So I've just been playing since I was 17, played by ear. No, not much musical theory or anything like that, just playing for fun.
Like, kind of what kind of made you think I want to play the whistle?
I just love the sound of it, to be honest. Out of all the instruments, it also seemed like one of the more simpler ones to just pick up and play to begin with. And it was, to be fair. I picked it up simple bits quite quickly, and I just played it kind of on and off since then, get a bit more.
Fantastic. So I think I'd be interested to know, like, what's your relationship with Vaughan Williams? Like, what did you know about it before you came and joined this project?
I knew only little bits and pieces. So a couple of his like more well-known like Green Sleeves and stuff, but not much at all. But I thought it was really interesting because obviously being quite out in the sticks in Suffolk, very much interested in like the local history, which is basically what the folk music that he collected is about. And because I like playing the instruments anyway and like the music, it's like the two joined together. So that's what drew me to it. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of little intricacies about the place which a lot of people might not know about, and I don't know much about. But like place names, the names of fields and stuff, I find that really interesting. And obviously everything we're doing now will be in the past tomorrow, so you're always kind of adding to the folklore of the place, I guess.
So I'm Lauren. I mainly play the saxophone, but also the clarinet, and then I'm learning the flute as well. I started playing saxophone when I was 9, but I'd previously been taught a bit of piano by my mum, and then just since then, I guess saxophone's taken over, and I've just done lots. I joined Old Young Musicians when I was in year 9 as well. I'm still doing that. This is my 5th year, and yeah, just kind of being exposed to loads of different genres and kind of, just enjoying it.
My name's Heather. I play the flute. I've grown up with like folk music my whole life, so I've been going to folk festivals ever since I was like born, and I've just gone from there.
How do you find it being a young person playing folk music? There's not a lot of us.
Yeah, it's kind of like quite unique. Like when I say it to my friends, they're like, "Oh, what's folk?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just like cool music," like, and they're like, "Oh, don't want to listen to that," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. So then I go to like these festivals and like meet all my friends, and like we're all into folk, and it's quite it's cool.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I guess I feel like I've kind of come to folk quite late because I haven't done much of it in the past. But then I got a bursary from the trust a few years ago, and I played at the Side Ring Song Festival in Stowmarket in 2019 with a couple of my AYM friends. We arranged a couple of folk songs and also wrote our own one. And I've also done a couple of folk courses at AYM, which have been really fun, kind of just being exposed to it. And I guess it's just always interesting to kind of learn more about it, because I don't know, it's really fun just to learn all the tunes and things.
So I'm Eli. I play an instrument called the melodeon, and I do, at the moment, I play a lot of English folk music, but also some folk from around Europe.
Maybe for listeners who might not know, could you maybe just tell me like what a melodeon is and describe it?
Yeah, sure. So it's a type of accordion, which is the instrument with bellows in the middle, a piano keyboard on the right hand, and buttons on the left hand. Imagine like a French busker, that's the accordion. Melodeon is similar, but it's got buttons on both sides. The sound is a bit different, and sort of, there's some other like differences in how you play it, but it's very similar to an accordion.
And I mean, I've got to ask, like, how did you start playing the melodeon?
Yeah.
How did you even get into that?
So I was first playing classical piano, and then I went to a course in the summer holidays in folk music generally, which I'd not done before. I hadn't come across folk before. But I went to there and I really enjoyed it. I kept going back. It was at Cecil Sharp House in London, and at one point they brought in melodeons for everyone to try out, and we just learned Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars on the melodeon, and I really liked the instrument, so went and sort of tried to find one and started learning.
Why did you go on this folk music retreat? I don't know course. Why did you get into folk music?
I mean, I initially just tried it out because it was something to do, in the school holidays, and it looked fun, so I thought I'd give it a go. I'd already played music, so I knew I enjoyed music, but not folk before, so I thought try out something new. And it's just really fun. I was sort of hooked first just because it was a fun thing to do, and then later a sort of love for it grew from that.
Yeah. So your family are folkies, right?
No.
Fantastic. So you came really fresh into it.
Yeah. I didn't really know what it was before I started playing.
And so, is there any kind of particular areas of folk music that interest you, any kind of styles?
Well, as I say, at the moment I've played mostly English folk. I play mostly instrumental as well, rather than singing. I mean, taking traditional repertoire and making it modern is something that we're working on this program here, and that's something that I'm quite interested in.
Some flowers are all gone. I can find me the berry or...
Kate Griffin, an amazing banjo player and songwriter, was a guest tutor at the Showcase workshop and gave a masterclass during the morning. I asked Finn how that came about.
So on the day, Kate came in and I spoke to her and did a little interview with Kate when I was there, and sort of did a masterclass in the morning about folk songs and her way of interpreting and changing them, particularly focusing on the lyrics. Have you worked with Kate before? Did you have a relationship beforehand with her?
Yeah, so I mean, I've known Kate for goodness me, maybe 5 or 6 years. And yeah, so Kate and I first met when we were both finalists in the BBC Young Folk Award, and we kind of spent part of that thing. Well, they've not done it the last few years actually, but the way they used to do it was it wasn't just a big performance that was part of the selection process. It was kind of spending a weekend, I think it was, just 2 or 3 days, working creatively with all of the other finalists, and that was the first time I met Kate. And we've crossed paths a number of times since then, just in the way that you do on the folk scene. We both work with various different musicians, but this was kind of the first time that I'd properly worked with her in terms of collaborating in this way. So that was wonderful. But I knew that she would be brilliant for this in terms of her experience of collaborating with musicians from a whole range of amazing different musical backgrounds, and her love for taking traditional material and making it her own.
My name is Kate Griffin. I mostly play banjo and sing. I'm also a composer. I write a lot of music and work with traditional folk music as well. I sort of grew up listening to country music. My dad is a massive country music fan, so he'd plonk me in front of the telly when I was about 3 years old and just make sure I watched this music. And then I realised, I don't really like this kind of music. I want something a bit more something I can connect to a bit more earthy. And that's how I got into folk music. And then my dad sort of bet me 50 quid that I couldn't play the banjo. And I was about...
How old are you at this point?
I was 16, 17 maybe. And I was like, I think I need 50 quid. So I learned how to play the banjo.
So within because I know you're in a band, what sort of music do you generally focus on within that? And is any of it kind of borrowed from the English tradition? Do you apply your techniques of kind of manipulating and changing it that you've been teaching today?
Yeah, I suppose I do. Maybe not English traditional repertoire that much. I've done, there was a song that I did with one band called the Magpies, which is more like a transatlantic session transatlantic sort of fusion thing. And that was called I Never Will Marry. That was like a folky American song. That's maybe stayed quite close to its roots in terms of sound, but the actual content of the song changed a lot, again, to have this sort of feminist angle. Just because we're like three women singing this song, and we wanted to make it feel, feel relevant to us. And then recently I've been working on a project with my other band Mishra, and we've just started working with Indian classical vocalist called Deepa Shakti.
So cool. That's
She's phenomenal. She's such an amazing singer, and she does like Sufi stuff and folk stuff as well. So me and her have been talking about like how can we meet in the middle, like bringing traditional repertoire from the UK but also from India. And we've been doing this sort of exciting compositional stuff where we're like semi-writing, semi-using traditional stuff. Like we've just we're in the process of recording another American folk song which was called The Devil's 9 Questions. But we had to sort of change a lot of it to make it fit with like the tabla grooves and stuff like that. And so I ask these riddles in English, and she sort of responds to the riddles in Hindi. And it gets like a bit crazy, a bit drum and bass at the end, but it's all just like quite groovy and fun. So we're going to release that as a single, which is under sort of Mishra and Deepa Shakti. Hopefully we're going to release that mid-Feb, because we're about to go on tour and tour this sort of new collaboration of meeting of different styles.
Today you've been with the young musicians and you've been running a workshop. Can you maybe talk a bit about like what the workshop was that you're running and how it went?
Sure.
What your feelings were on it?
I think Finn and Emma wanted me to come because I've got quite like songwriting is sort of one of my things I like to do, and obviously we're working with traditional song repertoire, but there's always this thing, isn't there, with traditional music of an element of sort of change, but also this element of, what's the opposite of change? Permanence? Yeah. So like I think I'm sort of more on the side of change, where I love to be quite progressive with what I do with traditional repertoire, like just because I'm not very good at the sort of, I'm not a traditional ballad singer by any means. I don't really know how to do that. The things that interest me more are sort of writing new music and incorporating like traditional stuff in.
Fantastic.
So I think that's why they got me here, because to work with these songs and just sort of give the participants an idea of like what you can do, like how far can you go with this traditional repertoire to still, sort of call it folk music in a way. And you can do, I think this is here for us to use in a way, because it's part of the tradition that it evolves and keeps changing. So we looked at lots of different sort of techniques of stuff you can do, like quite musical things of like changing keys, time signatures, like changing melodies. And lyrics is a big thing. I think we had lots of us this morning wanted to talk about lyrics, because a lot of the traditional repertoire is kind of, I don't know, lots of us feel a bit uncomfortable with what the lyrics are about,
Absolutely.
When they said, oh, can you do like an example piece? So I was looking through all the like books and stuff. And I looked through the first one and then the second one and the third one, and I was getting so tired of every song being about a pretty fair maid.
Like quite trope, right?
And that is just like what lots of them are, or like they're always from the perspective of a man, even if it's just a story song, like about going off on a ship or whatever, but it's always from the perspective of a man pretty much most of the time. And this was like really frustrating me until I found this one piece which was still kind of, it was I can't remember quite what the story was, a man going off to war or something. But the first line was, come all you wild young men, a warning take by me. And I just saw those two lines and I was like, okay. I'm going to take that and turn it more into like the frustration I was feeling at that, like the songs or the traditional songs we have paint this certain picture of sort of gender and society. And from those two lines, I just took it off in another way, which I think was quite a nice thing to talk to about the guys this morning. and get their thoughts. Like they suggested some of the story songs, like that was about a man going off on a ship, and I was like, well, what could we do with this? And like some of them were saying, well, take that idea of a journey, but maybe like apply it to modern day people having to take journeys, whether it's migrants or whatever. And I was like, this is good stuff. Like, so that's
a really interesting twist. You know, the whole idea of someone going to sea, you know, and actually twisting it, you know, as someone who doesn't want to go to sea.
Exactly. So I thought that was really, really cool, and just opening their minds to like, it's okay to evolve tradition. Like, you are the next generation of folk musicians, so there's no point in you sort of just doing what's been done for decades, because, you know, it is a tradition. The whole point of that is that it changes. I
love the way your approach is so much about like fluidity and like the kind of plasticity of tradition songs. It's really important to you, but it doesn't stay rigid, you know, and sort of this untouchable structure we mustn't mess around with. Because that seems like a lot of the project actually seems to be quite a lot like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it was that, then it would sort of die. Like, if you think like you weren't allowed to change the stuff in these books, then you can't really, I don't know, it would just sort of stop. We'd just be preserving a bit of history. We'd be historians. So we can't, it has to keep changing, I think, and it's really nice to see what they're doing with it. Really cool.
Absolutely.
Towards the end of our conversation, Finn, Emma and I discussed what the next steps are in the project and all the exciting future events coming up.
I mean, it was really fascinating, like seeing the products at the end from like what is relatively quite a short amount of time, what they'd done from like taking a piece and then what they managed to do in a few hours, you know, and it just makes you think, like, oh my god, like what can happen, and like with the amount of time they're actually being given to the final performances. I'd love to know kind of what's the next steps, what's going to be happening in the future. What's the next step after this in-person sessions?
So the next thing is each of the participants has an amount of time allocated to them for some mentoring with us, and the purpose of those sessions really is for us to check in with them and see how they're getting on with exploring the material and interpreting it, and it's a chance to work on whatever they want to work on, really. I think a lot of them will be quite sort of kind of natural discussion based sessions, to be honest. They'll bring their ideas and we'll listen to their ideas and just bounce off bits of feedback and I don't think they're going to be teaching sessions necessarily. It's not going to be us saying, right, now you're going to do this, now you're going to do that. I'm really kind of hoping that it doesn't go like that, and that it is just an opportunity for us to see what they've been working on, and for them to have somebody to bounce off their ideas and just things like, oh, have you thought of doing it like this, or in my travels I came across this other tune that I think would fit perfectly with this. It's those kind of ideas that I think would be really good to spend time kind of bouncing together. So that kind of happens, and most of those sessions will happen online because everybody is all over the place and busy with their lives and so that happens over the next kind of 4 months that takes us to the summer, and then we meet again in July, and we have two days together. We have a whole weekend in July, and really the purpose of that time is to bring everything together, to share everybody's ideas and the bits of music that they've been working on individually through the course of the previous 4 or 5 months, and to try and then turn it into a performance.
Yeah, well, it's the big day at the end of it, right? It's kind of a couple of big performances at the end of it at Folk East and Traditional Music Day, which I'm very, very excited for. I think finally, I'd love to just get kind of both an answer from both of you really about How are you feeling about it all? Like, you know, what's kind of what was your emotional takeaway after this in-person session? And we're sort of like getting towards the midpoint for the length of the project. I'd love to know, like, how are you feeling about it all?
So for me, it was a really exciting day. It was really nice because I think we went into the day with lots of things, very exciting things, but kind of floating around going, what's going to happen? Is it going to be this? It could be this. Like, yes, you never know. And I feel like throughout the day, it just became clearer and clearer what the project's going to involve, what kind of music we're going to be working with. And I think, yeah, for me, it just made me really excited to see what people come up with over the next couple of months. It's a real pleasure to be kind of involved in the process because it's, I guess, it's just working with such fantastic musicians. And I think the quality of kind of music that's going to be coming out of it is going to be really exciting. And also, it's always, with folk music, the kind of nature of it is that it always has to be moving forward, staying relevant to now. And I think there's kind of nothing better for that than to be working with kind of a group of people in this age range, just to see what they can come up with that's new.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I totally echo all of that. I think that sums up a lot of what I'm thinking as well. And just to kind of be in this place of like, yeah, we're doing this now. It feels a lot more real, I suppose, than just lots of hypotheticals. Or it could go like this, it could go like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really excited to see what they all create. And I think the meeting point of all of the different influences that they'll bring to the project is hugely exciting. It's like a big cauldron full of musical ideas, and it's our job to be the kind of the witch that's stirring the cauldron, I suppose, a big kind of cauldron of folk.
I love the analogy. I love the analogy there. It's very rich visually.
Yeah. So our job is to, I guess, in July and it kind of in the meantime to sort of to get the best out of that, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to. Hugely exciting and a privilege to be part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, it's fantastic. It was a real pleasure being able to come along to the day, and it's fantastic kind of working alongside you guys. Before we go, I'd love it if maybe you got lots of music online and stuff. Where can people find your music? If they want to find out a bit more about you and kind of find your musical outputs, whereabouts would they be looking for that stuff?
Yeah, so for me, the best place to go probably is my website, which is allthews.finncollinson.com. That's Finn with two N's. And the most recent thing that we are both involved in is an album that came out in October last year called The Threshold. And it's an album. It's my album, but Emma's all over it. She's on every track. Yes, lots of kind of collaborative recorder and oboe lines going on that record. So that's probably the best place to hear what we're about when we're working together.
Fantastic. Yeah, and Emma, do you have any music out at all at the moment?
So I'm actually more in a place, I'm doing my master's at the moment, and I think I'm more in a place of kind of new projects and creations. And I've not got much coming out, but I also have a Facebook page, which is Emma Beach Musician / Workshop Leader, because I seemingly can't decide what I'm going to be. So that's kind of where I kind of post about things that's going on. Sometimes it's youth stuff, sometimes it's playing. But yeah, it's more of a kind of, I guess, I wouldn't even say writing, but I guess like discovering time for me at the moment.
Awesome. Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you guys, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Cheers.
Cheers, Jake.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the East Anglian Traditional Music Trust's Big Sky Traditions. There'll be more content coming up soon following the progress of this project, and we'll be back with our young musicians again in a few months when they meet for a weekend of folk music and planning for the big performance in the summer. Till then, thank you all for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon.